This is TWiT.
Let's put it this way. I would say almost none of the developers sitting in the audience for that keynote are going to be able to afford that Mac Pro. So, if we're not the professionals, there's still a market for us down at the lower end as well.
James, you're not sinking your massive peak calc earnings into a $6,000 machine plus a $6,000 monitor? What's wrong with you?
I bought an iMac Pro. I think Apple got their money.
Yes,
that's going to do me for a while.
Yeah.
And the thing with that Mac Pro that struck me is if we are legitimately like a year away from starting a transition to ARM away from Intel, I would like to buy a computer that maybe has got a longer future.
That's an interesting point. Although, given how modular this is, it's really just a box with a bus, right? I mean,
I don't know how modular the CPU stuff was. I mean, it's a fabulous machine. I am never going to own one.
Yeah, me neither. I would love to, but it's and by the way, if they're using this Xeon 28-core Xeon W processor, that's a $10,000 processor for 28 cores alone. The processor alone. So you're talking a $50,000 outlay for a fully spec'd. Go ahead, Andy.
It's really clear that this is not a computer for the rest of us. This is a computer for a segment of the Mac community, super high-end pro that has never breathed Earth air or experienced Earth gravity. But the thing is,
I just want to know who needs 1.5 terabytes of RAM. I mean, who is it? It's pushing that envelope.
We're talking about
machine learning. What is that?
No, well, we're talking about stuff like there was a really great. I'm scrolling down because again, I'm going through my notes. There is a great thread on Twitter by Michael Pusateri who kind of put it into perspective, saying there are people that are working in pre-visualization where here is your big CGI-based motion scene, and that's a walk-in through for corporate video or even for a movie, and now someone has said, well, what if they're entering from the left instead of the right? The ability to simply make that change, spit out a quick video, and show it to them immediately, and get that kind of iteration on a project, really, really, really important. The ability to stream host a multiple stream at 4K or 8K, that's a really, really big deal. That's rarefied air, and you do need a machine with this kind of performance. The thing is, I don't know that. I think that the message that needs to come out is that no matter how intense you think your need for a desktop is, unless you know every single acronym that's being thrown out in the description of this thing, it's statistically unlikely that you need this kind of power. Apple, I think, is saying that the reason why we updated the Mac Mini last year to give it so many top-end options, if you want to build it out that way, is to say that if you're just doing kind of normal video editing, if you're doing normal production, if you're doing normal photo editing, even if you're doing Xcode to a normal level, spend all your money on either an iMac Pro or on a top-of-the-line Mac Mini. This new Mac Pro is not for you. You're basically throwing money away just to have the prettiest Mac on the desktop.
I think a lot of pros actually would be very happy with the Mac Mini, but at the same time, you could look at this and you go, God, I'd love to have this.
One of the things I would say is that this is technology that we can't afford today and Apple can't put into consumer machines today. But maybe in 10 years, we'll have 1,000-track Logic projects running in, our MacBook equivalent.
Or our phone, honestly.
Or our phone, or our watch.
Yeah.
Who knows?
You make a really good point, though, James. It'd be a foolish thing to spend that much money on a machine that might only have a few years lifetime. Now, if you're a professional, if you're editing, 8K movies or making 1,000-track Logic Pros, it's worth it for 2 years. You can amortize that cost. But for the rest of us, maybe it's a good idea. Be prudent to wait and see what happens with ARM.
None of these machines are going to stop working the day Apple ships an ARM-based machine. It just means that, the transition has started.
Right.
And,
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. One being that it's again another thing that I've been reading people who know more than I do about a $10,000 computer and the sort of things they tend to do. One of the things that keeps coming up is that this might be the last time that you can buy something this powerful that sits on one desk. Chiefly because for that super high end stuff, a lot of this work is going towards virtualized machines, right, where you can just bring more cores in as your needs kind of increase, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. As for Apple going to ARM, I'm not 100% sure that they can build the sort of ARM processors that are going to be able to do that sort of not really consumer, not a Superman Pro user sort of machine. So I think they're still going to need to rely on Intel for that kind of hardware. It'd be interesting if they decided to see, well, what kind of deal can we cut with AMD if Intel is making us upset from time to time about its schedule problems. But
I would bet that there are people in a secret facility somewhere who are trying to make ARM chips go very fast when they are cooled and being fed with mains power and don't have to throttle and all this sort of stuff. So I mean, if anyone could do it, I think Apple can. They've got the people, and we've seen some amazing silicon that's come out of them. Yeah. I had a running bet that the Mac Pro was going to be some 64 core ARM thing, just because if I was right, I would have looked like an absolute genius.
You open up the side and it's just like 128 Raspberry Pis all networked together.
Now, you make a good point that with things like Google's TPUs in the cloud, that's going to be, in the long run, perhaps for a lot of solutions, a better solution. But there are still people who need a lot of silicon on their desktop. For one, I'm actually very grateful. We've been saying, and I didn't think there was a chance in hell for months on MacBreak Weekly, bring back the cheese grater. That was the perfect Mac Pro. It was a foolish thing. Apple finally admitted, I think, to go to the trash can Mac. This was a great design, and when they brought back the cheese grater in spades. I mean, it literally looks like a cheese grater. There were a lot of people who don't remember that was the nickname for the old Mac Pros, who were saying, posting on Twitter, posting pictures. Go ahead, put the cheese grater on the desk. Posting pictures of actual literal cheese graters, saying it looks like a cheese grater. Well, that's what we called this, and it's in many ways, it's very similar to the Tower Mac Pro.
Yeah,
I mean, what a great device. Go ahead, James.
I was just going to say, except I could afford one of those.
Yeah. Well, no, I was looking at Twitter. Somebody just posted on Twitter, Jimmy Grewal, the first professional Mac prices. I remember the 2FX, which we colloquially called the 2effing expensive, started at $10,000. A Mac 2 was $5,500, 2X $7,769, and that was, by the way, this is in 2000. What is it? $1996.
I'd like to see those adjusted.
Yeah, this is not modern dollars. A 2CX was $5,369. Quadra was $900, was $7,200. So this isn't. I think you made an excellent point, James, which is that's what this costs today. And 10 years from now, it might be in a phone. So, but it is a beautiful work of art. Stainless steel, which is really interesting. Does the Apple logo on that look unusually large?
But it looks about the same. It reminds me of
what it would have been on the older machines.
Yeah, it looks like the old machines.
It is. It's just, in fact, you're right. Boy, you guys have good eyes. It's exactly the same.
I've got one under my desk.
I forgot how big that was on the old machine.
I kind of like the fact that they're taking a design cue for one of the prettiest Macs they've ever made. This is like the G4 Cube, where twist out this nice handle and the entire thing comes out.
Isn't that sweet?
Exposing all
it is a
sides
cube.
of it.
You're right. You take it out and it opens it up.
Yeah, they also make the point that not only I do think that the new double cheese grater is really cool looking. They did make the point that it's also functional because it's really all about airflow. A couple people I know who had access to them at WWDC were saying that it actually sounds a lot quieter than their iMac Pros in terms of when the fans have to kick in and how the cooling goes.
It's really interesting.
They won't be limited.
It's a unique look, and of course it's repeated on the back of the new monitor as well. I just think this is, watch this. This is so beautiful. Oh, my God. And one of the things we liked about the old Tower Mac was the wiring was hidden away. These modules popped in and out. No one in the world needs 4 Radeon Pro Vega 2s, or maybe they do if you have 8K videos.
They do.
Yeah. But just gorgeous. So you make an interesting point. The CPU may not be that modular. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it might be that's a logic board. Although,
but there's still a lot.
Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
There's still a lot you can add. Now that they're relying on MPX modules, now that they've got so many PCIe slots, if you want to keep adding hardware accelerators, you can do so without having to go outside through Thunderbolt. But
wait a minute, how is he doing that? It looks like we've actually got one delivered. We've got some sort of weird augmented reality Mac Pro on the table here, replacing the old cheese grater. That looks pretty sweet. I think we maybe have to buy one. Just
that's actually a great product. And someone manufactured just something that looks like that shell. That's just a little bit larger
on top of the old Mac
cheese grater that you just simply lower around it.
Yeah. Is this an Apple AR? So it's something from ARKit that Apple's distributing. So you could see what it would look like. That's actually doing a really good job of augmented reality. It's sitting on the table very nicely.
I want to put wheels on the bottom of that and have it motorized so it just follows you around. I just think that's going to be you got room inside to put that kind of stuff in there.
How much do those wheels cost, do you think? What's your bet?
I bet $500 for the set of 4. You think less?
I hope less.
If the stand for the monitor is $1,000.
Yeah. I mean, that I don't know why they broke the price out for that. If they just said the monitor costs $6,000, nobody would be sort of poking fun at $1,000 stand.
That's a good point. I think I understand. For instance, in fact, I've texted Alex Lindsay, say you're going to buy one. He's not responding, which means he probably already did. But I think what they're saying is, and remember, they brought in, after the failure of the trash can, remember a couple of years ago, they made the apology. They said, we're working on the next generation Mac Pro. It won't be this year, won't be next year. They were right. It'll be fall of this year. But one of the things they said about it is we actually hired professionals, video editors, music creators, developers. We've hired people to be in our design lab to give us input on what this Mac Pro should be. And Alex Lindsay, for instance, throws away the stands. Even when he buys an iMac, he puts a Visa mount and everything in an ARM. So I think for some professionals, the idea that I didn't want the stand, I want the Visa mount, or I have my own thing that I'm going to do, actually makes sense. But you're right, it became a laugh line. I'm surprised Jimmy Fallon didn't mention it on late night last night to have $1,000 monitor stand, and yet, but it does some really cool things, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the people who are buying these whatever $30,000 reference monitors, who look at this and go, it's only $6,000,
right? Right.
That's who this is for, and it's not for me. I've got a really nice screen on this iMac Pro that I'm looking at now. It's only 5K, not 6K, and it's not, the full HDR, whatever. It's still a really nice screen. Yeah.
I don't think it's an issue or anything, but I would say that this would have been a great opportunity for Apple to impress us with, hey, we can actually design something that's functional and cool that does not cost $1,000. We can actually make something that costs only as much as a mid-range notebook, as opposed to a really expensive one.
That's not Apple's way. Come on.
Yeah, I know.